What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. Alright, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. I know I've been gone for quite a while, so it's good to be back. And yes, I did get a haircut. I've changed my hairstyle quite a bit. Thank you guys for noticing. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of the haircut. I know I cut it pretty short. I really hope you guys like it. Let me know down below. But in the meantime, with all the pleasantries aside, we have a lot to talk to you about today, as I am seeing multiple rounds of winter storms and severe weather happening in the next week or so. We have one system that's going to be hitting on Saturday in parts of the Midwest and in parts of the Northeast, as well as a very big severe weather threat for parts of the deep south. We have another winter storm a few days after that, and another one after that for parts of the Midwest in the Northeast, particularly in New England. We could see a nor'easter as well. So yeah, we have a lot to go over. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. Right now, let's go ahead and start with the SPC's outlook real quickly, just to kind of give you some context and give you a general gist as to what we're looking at. Let me go ahead and move my screen over just so you guys can see that and zoom in on this, just to give you an idea. Here's the situation. We have an enhanced risk of severe weather for day 3 that encompasses the extreme eastern part of Texas, much of northern Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, and slight risk goes around that all the way to Tennessee and North Carolina, to near the Houston area in Texas, and to the near the Gulf Coast over here. So we have a pretty big situation. We also have a 30 hatched enhanced risk area, which is going to be a bit of an interesting situation to see how this pans out. And I personally think we could see a moderate risk and either tomorrow or on Saturday being issued by the SPC. We'll have to see how it plays out. But regardless, we have a lot to continue to consider and a lot to really get going with. So that's what we have going on. Enhanced risk of severe storms. Severe weather is expected from East Texas to much of the southeast and parts of the mid-south on Saturday. Scattered to numerous damaging wind gusts and a few tornadoes are the primary threats. If you ever see from the SPC on a day 3 outlook, severe weather is expected, that is a very, very bad sign, and that is a very concerning thing for the SPC to put out this early. So we're going to go ahead and have to look at that a little bit deeper. Not exactly right now, I would say, but we're going to have to take a look at that at some point. So that's what we have going on. In the meantime, though, we're going to be talking about some more of these model runs. We're going to be looking at some of the atmospheric conditions as to what's going to be causing this and what are the impacts going to be. This is going to be kind of, I'd say, about somewhat meteorology, but the majority of it's going to be impacts and timing of all of these systems, because we have so much to talk about with you today. So with that being said, let me go ahead and move my screen over, and let's go ahead and get this show on the road. Here's what we have going on right here. We're going to use the NAM for the Saturday system, but after that, we're going to be using primarily long-ranged runs, just to give you a general gist as to what we're looking at. And yes, we're going to still use all these runs for comparisons and looking at stuff and seeing how this system develops and get an aggregate as best as we can for you guys. But we are going to be using mid-range to long-range runs in this video today. So here's the situation that we have going on. We have the system organizing and developing over here out in the Rocky Mountains. It's going to be developing pretty quickly. Then you have the system starting to ramp up in parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, those areas. The NAM, I will say, has a bit of a northward bias compared to the rest of the runs, but I am just showing you this just for transparency reasons. So here we go. It really develops, it starts to organize and develop in the Dakotas, moves through Minnesota and Wisconsin. I want to let you guys know right now, this is going to be some very heavy snowfall, and there is going to be some mixed precipitation as well in parts of Illinois, because there's going to be a bit of an inversion, because the temperature at the surface is going to be just below freezing, but the temperature above the surface is going to be above freezing, and what it's going to do is it's going to start snowing, then it's going to transition to rain, and then it's going to transition back to ice as it's hitting the ground. That's typically how this stuff works. So Ultimately, the system really moves through much of the Midwest into the Mid-Atlantic region, and then the Northeast return United States into New England in particular. And then the backside of it develops right here. It develops both in the Midwest and in the Mid-Atlantic region. So this part will really run through while the heavy stuff is organizing and developing near Boston, near New York, and those areas as well. That's what we have going on with the NAM right there. We're also going to go ahead and show you the GEM RDPS to get you some comparison and to give you some context. GEM RDPS, I will say I don't like the temperatures that are affiliated with it, but I want to see how this initializes just to kind of get a general gist as to what we're looking at right here. So GEM RDPS definitely further to the south than the NAM right here. It still really brings a lot of heavy snow to parts of the Chicago area, to Detroit, to near potentially Cleveland and Toledo, all the way to New York City, Philadelphia, Boston. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to be impacted by this, and I would not be surprised if we see, at least considering the snow accumulations, either winter weather advisories or winter storm warnings being issued in the next 12 to 24 hours. We're going to have to pay attention to that and see how this pans out. Here's what the GEM GDBS is going for right here. Similar setup right there to the GEM RDPS. And let's go ahead and show you the GFS because this is a pretty interesting run. GFS definitely further to the south compared to the other runs I'm noticing, especially around the Chicago area. I want to pay attention to that area over here. Let's go ahead and zoom into the Chicago area. The reason I'm paying attention to this area as well in particular is because of the ice threat, because of the sleet and the freezing rain. Is there that inversion going to get far enough north to hit the Chicago metro area? That's an area I'm pretty concerned about with that. Other parts in like the Northeast and all that, there's a bit more of a line that we can draw, whereas in parts of the Midwest, it's a little bit more difficult and a little bit more tricky, and it really depends on what the weather is going to do that day. But in parts of the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast over here, it's a bit more clean cut. You start to see that rain-snow line in every single one of these runs. I can even show you the NAM as well, developing just past the snow in Pennsylvania and in New York, and in Virginia and those areas right there, around the Appalachian Mountains as well. That's what I'm noticing as well. That's how this freezing rain sleet really starts to develop, and then it moves on from there. So that's the general gist as to what we're getting right there. Ultimately, you have a jet that's going to be driving the system out of the United States in the next few days, and that's kind of what we have going on by Monday. And we'll get more into more of the snow for next week in later parts of the video. But first, I want to go ahead and look at the snow accumulations as well as the freezing rain accumulations from these models, just to kind of give you an aggregate as to what's going on and to give you my opinion on this. So here's what we have with the NAM. Let's go ahead and start with the Midwest and work our way east. The NAM wants Wisconsin to get over a foot of snow. They want Michigan to get up to 10 inches of snow, especially around Traverse City over here and in Marquette, Michigan as well as Grand Rapids getting 8 inches of snow. Detroit's going to get around 3 to 4. 3 to 4 county west of that, where the county west of that, as well as Macomb Macomb and Oakland counties over there. You're looking at potentially up to 6 inches of snow according to the NAM right there. I will say I'm not exactly trustworthy of the NAM because I do believe this has a bit of a northward bias to it, and I'll show you what's going on. We also have Minneapolis getting 8 inches of snow. Same with Green Bay as well, so we're going to have to pay attention to that. Let's go ahead and go over to the Mid-Atlantic and Northeastern United States. Okay, this is pretty interesting right here. The system, according to the NAM, wants to really give especially upstate New York and Vermont up to potentially 2 feet of snow from this system. And I can kind of understand where it's coming from. You have higher elevations up there that'll generate more snowfall for those regions. But 2 feet of snow seems a little interesting. And I will say, do I think it's going to happen this week? I think so, but is it going to be all from one system? I really don't think that's the case, but we'll watch it, we'll monitor it, whereas other areas I'm concerned about, like Philadelphia, New York City, and Boston, you're looking at 1 to 3 inches of snow because of that rain line that I was talking to you about earlier. We're going to have to pay attention to that, and parts of Pittsburgh getting 2 inches of snow. Let's go ahead and also show you the freezing rain accumulation just to give you a general gist. The NAM is going a little overboard, giving almost an inch of freezing rain to parts of New York in Massachusetts over here, while generally giving a glaze to other parts right here. I will say this, though, the Appalachian Mountains, as well as the T in Pennsylvania, I will say they are more prone to freezing rain in this case because of the inversion and all that stuff. So I could definitely agree with some of the higher amounts of freezing rain, like 0.2, 0.3, even a third of an inch of ice from this. But after that, I don't really see that much going on further than that. I do not, first of all, see almost an inch of ice. The NAM is absolutely overdoing it. And going to the Midwest right here, they are showing a glaze of ice, potentially up to an eighth of an inch of ice in parts of the Chicago area. That's generally where I would expect to see that as well. So we'll have to pay attention to that. Too. So that's what we're looking at with the snow and the ice accumulations from the NAM. Let's go ahead and look at the NAM nest to kind of give you a general, see what we're seeing in general agreement. Yeah, still further to the north, and the storm hasn't really stopped quite yet. Let's go ahead and pull up the GEM RDPS real quickly just to kind of give you an idea. I want total snow accumulation, not 6-hour snow accumulation. Okay, the GEM RDPS is having some issues. I'm sorry, I can't really work with this. I'm actually going to go ahead and go into continental United States and see if I can refresh this. Nope, I can't. I'm sorry, we're running into some issues with this. I do apologize profusely about this. The RDPS is not cooperating. The GEM GDPS, okay, this is what we were looking for right here. The GEM GDPS is pretty interesting, I will say. Let's go ahead and look at it right here. No, we can't actually zoom in, so we'll have to look at it right here. GEM GDPS is interesting. It gives Milwaukee up to 8 inches of snow. Gives Chicago up to 5, 6, 7, depending on where you are in the area. And if you're in Michigan, Detroit is more in the line of fire. Grand Rapids is still getting about 8 inches of snow, but you're less in the line of fire if you're in your upper lower peninsula, like Traverse City and those areas. Now, if you're looking at New York, Boston, in New England, in those areas over there, that is very concerning. Seeing all those snow totals going on right there, that is very concerning, especially in Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, all the mountainous regions, potentially getting up to 2 feet of snow over there. That is something to watch over there. Let's go ahead and pull up the European. European's pretty interesting, but it really wants to give Canada a large, it wants to put Canada in the line of fire. Okay, the 12Z is coming out as I'm recording this video, so we can't really use that. We'll have to use the 6Z, so I do apologize for that profusely. But here's what we have going on with the European run right here, generally giving areas in Wisconsin and Michigan more snow in the Midwest, and a bit more realistic, a foot of snow in parts of the northeast, parts of New England, and parts of New York, in the Appalachian regions over there. And let's go ahead and also look at the GFS as well. Here's the 12Z GFS. Yeah, the 12Z GFS seems more realistic in my opinion, mainly because I would say I don't see 30 inches of snow happening by the end of this in parts of Canada and all of that, unless we see other runs kind of replicating that as well. Then I'd be very concerned. But basically, the GFS for Wisconsin and Michigan is kind of the best of both worlds. If you're in Detroit, you're looking at potentially. Let's go ahead and zoom in on this real quickly. If you're in Detroit, you're looking at potentially up to 10 inches of snow, which is pretty interesting to say the very least. Milwaukee, 8 inches of snow. Chicago's 3 to 5. From this as well, so we're going to have to pay attention to it. If you're in the Northeast, parts of the mountainous regions could get up to 20 inches of snow. That's something very concerning for me to watch as well, to say the very least. But now that we're done with the snow, I want to talk more about the severe weather, because I know that's very overlooked in winter and all that stuff. And I know I've been getting comments in the past saying I haven't really covered it as extensively. I'll go ahead and talk a little bit about the severe weather, just to kind of give you a general gist. Like I said earlier in the video, we do have an enhanced risk that we need to watch out for. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. We're going to go ahead and look at the convective runs. We're going to mainly use the NAM. I want to take a look at the potential cape that we're seeing with this right here. It's coming off the Gulf of Mexico. Interestingly, okay, this is interesting. The NAM doesn't really have that much cape generating in parts of the deep south, like 1,000 joules per kilogram, 1,200 at most. I would say that's pretty interesting, but you don't really have a lot of sin. You don't really have a lot of cap. I want to go ahead and pull a sounding out of northeastern Louisiana just to kind of get a general gist as to what we're looking at and to kind of give an idea of what we're looking at. I wanted to see what the GFS is going for with Cape. They're actually going with even less, which I think is pretty interesting. So, okay, this is your culprit right there. You don't particularly have that much CAPE. You only have about 1,100 joules per kilogram of CAPE, which isn't on itself that conducive for a lot of severe weather. But your SRH values and your shear are what you're seeing right here. You're looking for your bulk shear. You're looking at almost 50 knots, which is absolutely incredible. And that definitely could cause some supercell development initially before it becomes a squall line. But this is going to be mainly a shear-driven type of system right here. This hodograph right here over here is pretty good for that as well. We're going to have to pay attention to that to see how this pans out. But ultimately, this is going to be a shear-driven event and not a cape-driven event, which is typical for the Deep South at this current point in time. So ultimately, really no surprises there. So that's what we have going on with that. I want to take a look at the supercell composite. Yeah, supercell composite's pretty strong. We're looking at 5 to 6 right now. That's right now. So definitely capable of producing some pretty nasty, severe weather in those parts of the South. So you're going to want to pay attention to that. Like they said, straight line winds and tornadoes are going to be the main threat with this. SIG-TOR parameter, not as impressive. We're looking at SIG-TOR parameter of like 3.3 or so. So I wouldn't worry so much about that as compared to the straight line winds. We'll have to see how it pans out. But regardless of that, once we get the HUR and the RAP in the aggregate, and once we get them in range, we'll have a much better chance to look at what we're potentially looking at. But I do think the enhanced 30 hatched is a good call from the SPC right now. And I would push moderate if we continue to see more data with the jet getting stronger and more shear and potentially even some more cape. I would push moderate if we continue to see those trends right there. So that's the severe weather aspect of this. Let's go ahead and talk briefly before we end this video about about next week, about the kind of the snowstorms we're looking at going forward. Let's go ahead and take a look at the GEM GDPS. I want to take a look at precip type, and I'll also look at the GFS as well. So Sunday, you have this whole mess moving out of the United States, and then you have some winter weather really starting to organize and develop on Tuesday in parts of the Great Plains, and this is going to be a very big snowmaker because the GEM GDPS, the European, and GFS have all agreed that this is going to be a pretty powerful type of system, although the GEM GDPS does have the system kind of tapering off, where the GFS has the system bringing in more moisture before ramping up again. And that's what the European is also bringing as well. Okay, never mind. The GEM GDPS does have that as well. It tapers off and then it ramps up off the coast of the United States. Let's go ahead and show you the GFS for comparison. GFS, pretty big snowmaker as it moves through the Midwest into the upper South, and then it starts to ramp up again as it taps into that Gulf and Atlantic moisture over there, but ultimately stays out to sea, although I do see a scenario where this moves a little closer and brings snowfall to parts of Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, all those areas. Let's go ahead and take a look at accumulations just to kind of see what we're looking at. Here's what we have going on. For parts of the Midwest, and we'll go ahead and zoom, we really can't zoom in on this, unfortunately. For parts of the Midwest, I'm seeing this right here. We're looking at areas of anywhere between 8 and 12 inches of snow. I'm noticing you're also looking at St. Louis. You're looking at 6, 7, 8 inches of snow from the system as well as it moves out, so we're going to have to pay attention to that. The European is really going powerful with this, and I'm going to be honest, it's hard for me to trust the Euro. I think it's going a little overboard because let me go ahead and zoom in on the Midwest for you guys. It wants St. Louis getting about a foot of snow, which definitely I wouldn't say is the most unrealistic, but there are more realistic scenarios out there to pay attention to. And I would personally think that's a little bit aggressive right now until we get more data from the GFS. And then as we get more mid-range models to kind of counteract and kind of agree with that. Right now, a foot seems a little bit overboard, but we'll pay attention to that as well. And we'll go ahead and show you the GFS. Yeah, the GFS wants to get wants these areas to get like 6 to 12 inches of snow. The European's the only one that wants to go really aggressive with that. But by and large, we're seeing multiple rounds of winter storms and potential severe weather happening, and we're going to have to pay attention to that all in the week, and we'll continue to update you here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. It helps us out, helps us get more people engaged with weather. I know tomorrow's Valentine's Day, so if I'm not doing anything, and if I don't somehow get a Valentine that day, I'm going to be streaming tomorrow night talking about a lot of this. I'm going to get the guys at Storms United together, and we're going to have a fun night tomorrow night doing that. So be sure to stay tuned for that. I'll update you if that happens or not. But with that being said, we'll be sure to like the video, subscribe. Be sure to join the Storms United Discord server. Shout out to Daniel as an official sponsor of the Pat's Path Predictor channel. If you want to support the channel directly, be sure to join the Pat's Path Predictor Patreon. I'm working on documentaries as well, so we'll stay tuned for those. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.